The Atlantic puffin is something that I've been wanting to photograph for a long time. I just like the way these birds are kind of goofy looking. They don't look like they should be able to fly with their short wings. They have very colorful beaks. And then most of all, you see photos of them where they just have a beak just full of fish. I've always thought that that was really kind of an interesting photo and one that I really wanted to take. Hello and welcome to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about my experience photographing the puffins in Iceland. And it was definitely a case of being persistent and having a lot of patience, as not all of the locations worked out quite as we thought that they would, but it was a very successful trip. The photos that were taken as part of this trip were all taken with a Nikon Z9 with the 100 to 400 millimeter lens. It's really all that you need in some of these locations. Others, there's not a lens long enough to get you what you want. So, but it did work out pretty well with the 100 to 400. It gave me some really nice sharp shots, and even the video that you see in here was also shot with that same combination. So I'll talk a little bit more about settings as I talk about some of the individual photos and some of the experiences that we had moving around Iceland. Our first stop was the Westmann Islands, and Westmann Islands boasts the largest puffin colony in Europe, if not worldwide. Unfortunately, when we got to the location, this is what we saw. Very few puffins. In this case, this is just one. This was actually taken with the 100 to 400 and the 1.4 teleconverter, so it was at 560 millimeters. Just not much going on. But if we turned and looked out towards the sea, all of those little black dots you see in this photo, those are all puffins. So there are actually hundreds, if not thousands, located in this particular spot. So our next stop was actually an area called Dyrhólaey. It's a wildlife preserve, and their website talked about puffins being right at your feet. In fact, it even mentioned don't touch them. And so I thought, well, this will be a great place to go. And this was back on the mainland. So we went there, and that unfortunately was even worse. So when we got there, there were two puffins that we saw that were very far away, also at a very bad angle. And then a third one that did show up that did actually live up to what they were saying on the website. Unfortunately, where it popped out, there was a large tour bus full of people, and they immediately all went running over to this poor little bird and completely surrounded it. And so it just literally dove back into its nest. So we made a couple attempts actually there. We left for a while, came back later in the day, and there just wasn't anything going on. So we were getting pretty discouraged actually at this point as to whether or not we would be able to actually get any decent shots of these birds. Thought maybe for whatever reason, timing, whatever, just wasn't quite in our favor. And we had what we thought was just one more shot. It actually turned out to be two. And the next location we went to was up in the East Fjords, and this had the advantage of a lot fewer people. Most of the tourists, when they come into Iceland, spend their time in the south and the southwestern portion doing the Golden Circle and really kind of staying down in that area there. So that also was going to help with fewer people. So our next stop was BORGARFJÖRÐUR EYSTri up in the East Fjords. This was about 3 or 4 days after Dyrhólaey. And some of the things I'd seen showed that there was a decent sized colony up there, and there were some platforms so you could get relatively close. But given our previous experiences, I was a little worried that this was going to be another area where we were just going to kind of strike out. But when we got there, things were really nice. For one, it was a nice sunny day, and these birds do look really nice when the sun is there. And despite being told in the Westmann Islands that on sunny days the birds tend to spend all their time out at sea, they were everywhere. And so this particular shot was one. It was about 210 millimeters, I think, was where I was zoomed to get this. All of the shots you see here will be at 1/2000th of a second, various focal lengths depending upon where things were, and shooting fairly wide open. So here are some of my favorite shots from this location. So just a couple more details on those photos. And actually, I thought at this point that we had visited all the various puffin locations. Turned out that we were actually going to come across one more. But before I get to that, a couple more details on the photos that you just saw. They were all taken with an ISO of 640. Like I said, it was a pretty sunny day. I needed to go up to 640 because I wanted to have shutter speed of 1/2000th of a second, both to take any movement of the birds out of the equation as well as just my own movement as well. Even with the image stabilization, I still like to shoot birds at a pretty high shutter speed. And then the aperture was whatever was wide open or half a stop closed down from wide open for the most part with those photos. So next we're on to the West Fjords, and there was an area there that is the most western part of Iceland. And I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but it's spelled, or the pronunciation I think, based on its spelling, is Látrabjarg. I'll put it up in the I'll put it up so you can see it. I'm sure there's probably, if anybody from Iceland sees this or anybody that knows Icelandic is probably laughing pretty hard right now at that pronunciation. But it is a sea cliff that does have a lot of birds, so it just makes sense that there would also be puffins there as well. There are a ton of birds there as well as puffins. So this next little video was one that I captured of a puffin that we ran into that was doing a little bit of nest building, and then one of the shots that I got from that. So this final shot, which I really liked, you don't see a whole lot of shots of puffins doing nest building, so it was kind of a pleasant surprise. The conditions were very different. It was very overcast, more typical type weather for this time of year, which would be June, depending on when you're watching this. So June in Iceland tends to be more overcast, a little rainy. So I had to make some adjustments based on that. So the ISO for this one was 1600. And I did bring the shutter speed down to 1/1000th of a second, and the focal length for this was 270 millimeters. So the aperture, again, was wide open, and that allowed me to be able to get that shutter speed that I was looking for. So hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, it was a little bit frustrating at first when we were trying to find them, but once we did find them, it was just an amazing experience, and we really did have a great time watching these birds and photographing them and filming them. And if you do get an opportunity to go out there, I highly recommend it. So So thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please hit like. If you'd like to be notified of more videos coming up, please hit the subscribe button. Thanks a lot. Bye.